Good evening, everyone. Bonsoir tout le monde. Bienvenue à la rencontre du 12 février. Item 1, appel. Tous les membres du conseil sont présents. Item 2, Territorial Land Acknowledgement Statement and Moment of Reflection, followed by the National Anthem. I'll ask everyone to please stand.
Nous reconnaissons que nous sommes sur le territoire non cédé des Anishinaabe et les terres traditionnelles des peuples Haudenosaunee, Huron-Wendat et Kanien'kehá:ka. Nous reconnaissons notre obligation commune de respecter, d'honorer et de préserver ces terres et les ressources naturelles qu'elles contiennent.
Whereas Canada is founded upon principles that recognize the supremacy of God and the rule of law, let us take a moment of personal reflection. Merci beaucoup. Item 4, additions, deletions, or amendments. We have under item 18B, Councillor Ternosky, discussion on standing agenda item. Seeing, hearing none others, I'll ask for adoption of the agenda. Motion to approve the agenda as amended. Need a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Lorrain and Councillor Deakin. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 6, déclaration d'intérêt pécuniaire. Aucun. Item 7, l'adoption des procès-verbaux. Procès-verbal de la séance ordinaire du Conseil du 29 janvier 2024. Motion d'approuver le procès-verbal tel que présenté. Besoin de proposer un appuyeur, conseiller Lalonde et conseiller Ternosky. Questions, comments? Hearing, seeing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Item 8, présentation, il n'y en a pas. Item 9, delegations, we have none. Item 10, consent items. Motion that all items listed under consent items be received as presented. A, proclamation and flag raising for Scout Guide Week, February 18th to 24th, 2024. B, request for community grants from the Parks and Recreation Department 2024 budget. And item C, minutes of the Attainable and Affordable Housing Committee of January 11th, 2024. Need a mover and a seconder put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Ternosky, seconded by Councillor Deakin. Questions? Hearing, seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 11A, information report on proposal change the postal addresses of Vars property in Russell and rebranding exercise PD 2024-06. Monsieur Godin, Madame Tremblay, anything to add to the report?
Bonsoir, membres du Conseil. Non, je pense que le rapport était quand même assez détaillé. C'est vraiment pour informer les membres du Conseil parce qu'on sait quand il y a des changements d'adresse, surtout à un grand nombre de propriétaires, ça peut causer des problèmes au niveau de la communication. Donc, on voulait informer les membres du Conseil qu'on voudrait faire un processus d'une demande de changement de zonage pour les propriétaires dans le parc industriel. Le but de vraiment, it's really once we, every time that we receive grants application or that businesses in the 417 Industrial Park, they will refer themselves at the Vars Industrial Park. And we feel that it's important for our members from the community of the Prescott Russell, and especially the Township of Russell, that they identify themselves as being part of the Township of Russell. So what we're proposing is basically that they have an address, a physical address, identifying that it's not Vars, that it's Russell. And the second part of it is the rebranding. So we're talking about just the rebranding of the 417 Industrial Park. We feel that 417 Industrial Park doesn't have that feeling of le sentiment d'appartenance que nos entreprises devraient avoir dans cette communauté-là. Donc, on veut faire un exercice avec eux pour identifier vraiment un slogan, un logo qui identifierait puis que les gens qui sont dans notre parc d'affaires seraient fiers de faire partie du parc industriel. Donc, c'est vraiment pour informer les membres du conseil que c'est dans cet exercice-là qu'on voudrait s'embarquer pour être capable d'avoir un slogan, un logo de notre parc industriel où les gens seraient fiers d'investir.
Okay. Just confirmer, it's, parce que I think it was just a slip of the tongue, you said zoning change. It's not a zoning change, it's a name change.
Yeah, I'm used to a zoning change.
Planning.
So, yeah. Fait que c'est un changement de nom. Et non pas juste le parc industriel de Vars ou de la 417.
Parfait. Questions, commentaires, membres du conseil? Conseiller Lalonde?
Thanks. I just have a comment and a question. The comment is certainly, I think it's a great idea. I mean, I've mentioned it myself a year or two ago, of the confusion between Vars and the Russell, and I'm really glad to see this coming forward to sort that out once and for all, that we really do have that identity that we should have. Question I have is just, I guess in the communication plan, and it talks about some of the challenges as to whether Canada Post or the municipality will handle the complaints, and then it talks about whether the municipality will be responsible for sending notices. So I imagine that those things are recognized and are going to be taken care of by somebody.
Yep. Madame Tremblay?
Yes. So basically what we'll do is have a conversation with Post Canada. So we didn't have that conversation to find out exactly what the process would be. So the first step would be for us to have that conversation and see who's going to be responsible for complaints and who's going to be responsible to send those notices. Usually it's the township, so I assume that in this case it would be the same. However, we'll have to find a common ground to deal with the complaints that will come with it. So this is a discussion that we'll have in further detail with Post Canada.
Perfect. I think in this case, you know, we've seen changes, similar changes, but it's always been name of streets, which can be very aggravating for businesses and for residents. In this case, the address is staying the same. It's really just the location, Vars to Russell, so I don't anticipate too many headaches on that. Councillor Lorrain?
Well, yeah, I mean, but I assume that some of the businesses are not going to be happy. They're going to have to either reposter or redo all of their materials that they hand out, or business cards or whatever. If the name, is it going to say Russell instead of Vars?
The address.
Russell, Ontario, or the address?
The address.
The address.
So that could be something that would be negatively affecting those businesses, and that could be something that they will say is a deterrent for them to vote, to say yes, they would want this. And I assume some of the, I think 29 out of 29 of the businesses were not in favor of that change, but could be for multitudes of reasons, but cost could be one of them, right? To either reposter vehicles, or if they have their name and address on their vehicles. I'm just saying I'm sure we're gonna expect some sort of a community improvement area type of request to support some of that process. So we need to be thinking of that too.
Yeah, perfect. Any other questions? Hearing, seeing none, we'll move on. Item B, 2024 Interim Tax Levies Report CSASFS 2024-01. Questions, comments, members of council? Hearing, seeing none, pretty standard stuff. Anything to add, Monsieur Godin ou Monsieur Dagenet? No, we're good. Prochain item, item C. Plan pour la gestion des actifs PGR rapport CSAS-AM 2024-01. Questions, commentaires, membres du conseil? Conseiller Ternoski.
Bonsoir, ça serait juste pour confirmer that I completely understand. So we're going with sole source contract on this based on the fact that we're using the same, we want to use the same company for both the 24 requirement, the 25 requirement. Is that my understanding? Just want to clarify that.
Yeah. Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Dagenet?
Actually, they own our, c'est les fournisseurs de notre logiciel de asset management. Puis ils ont déjà fait un rapport pour nous dans le passé. Fait que c'est pour ça qu'on veut aller avec eux pour le rapport de 2024 et le rapport de 2025 pour qu'on puisse extraire les informations puis pouvoir les rentrer dans le logiciel.
Conseiller?
Merci.
T'avais-tu quelque chose d'autre?
Oui, je pensais que... Go ahead, Lisa, if you want.
Conseiller Deacon and Conseiller Laurent?
Just a brief comment. I was looking at the purchasing policy and just wondering if next time a report like this comes regarding sole source, if we could have listed in the report the reason under 22.2, because there's 8 different reasons under 22.2 that we could have an exemption. So I waded through and I figured out that it was the technical piece, but it would be great to have that up front.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Laurent?
No, that was similar to what I was gonna offer as well, so I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Notes taken.
Will do.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing, seeing none, we'll move on to item D, Noise Bylaw Amendment Report PIC 2024-02, New Year's Eve exemption. Just to clarify, Madame Bordeaux, Madame Camille-Laflamme, I believe we've slightly changed the wording of the bylaw?
Yes, we have. We did receive a suggestion to change the wording, so I believe Madame Camille-Laflamme changed the wording today.
Okay, but essentially it's the same.
It's the same.
It's the same. Okay. Questions, comments, members of council? We had this discussion when the request first came up, so.
Mr. Mayor, the
Yep.
new wording is just under 137, where you see New Year's Eve. That's the new wording.
So noise from celebrations of commercial food and beverage establishments is exempt from this bylaw from 5 p.m. on December 31st until 1 a.m. on January 1st of the following day. Just cleaned it up a little bit. Perfect. If there's nothing to add, no questions, we'll move on to the next item. Item E, Expo dans la municipalité de Russell, 4-5 mai 2024, rapport EcoDev 2024-01. Monsieur Godin, Madame Tremblay, I'll let you speak to this one a little bit.
Donc, rebonsoir. Tout d'abord, je voudrais m'excuser que le rapport a été soumis en dernière minute. Vous comprendrez qu'on a rencontré Mme Lisotte cette semaine. Donc, étant donné d'avoir l'événement qui puisse se tenir au mois de mai, on devait avoir une réponse le plus vite possible. Donc, on a essayé de ramasser les informations le plus possible pour contenu dans le rapport. Donc, comme je viens de mentionner, le département a rencontré Mme Lisotte, qui est de la compagnie Anne Lisotte Communication, qui veut organiser une foire commerciale le 4 et 5 mai à l'Aréna d'Embrun. Donc, on a joint au rapport la proposition qui est une présentation là, qui explique pas mal toutes les informations. Cette compagnie-là aussi est l'organisatrice principale de l'exposition qui se tient présentement à tous les années à Clarence Rockland et à Hawkesbury. Étant donné que la date proposée de l'événement, comme je viens de mentionner, donc on devait présenter un rapport ce soir pour avoir une réponse dans les plus brefs délais. Donc, l'organisation d'une foire qui met en vedette vraiment nos entreprises locales, qui stimulerait le développement économique de la communauté et ferait la promotion des divers produits et services offerts dans la municipalité et dans la région. Donc, dans notre plan d'affaires, nous avions déjà introduit des objectifs qui pouvaient justement mettre la mise en œuvre et gérer l'organisation de celui-ci dans plusieurs autres événements. Comme vous le savez, le département de la municipalité organise à tous les années, sauf depuis le COVID, la foire
Saveur locale.
le saveur local, désolé. Donc, c'est un genre d'événement comme celui-ci, mais plus concentré sur les entreprises locales, qui aurait lieu le 4 à 5 mai. Donc, vous avez les informations dans le rapport. Nous avons communiqué avec le département de loisirs, justement pour voir au niveau de la disponibilité. Donc, la glace est disponible dans les dates proposées. The location and the date are really important in a sense that the ice is being removed close to those dates. And further in the month of May, it would be too late. And then, obviously, later in the year, we have the ice, so it's impossible to proceed with that event. Eventually, we would love to have that event every year so that the businesses know that it's going to happen on every time at the same year. And in the presentation, you could see all the price and the included. So basically, the offer that was on the table is for the township to be full sponsorship of the event, so to be the main sponsorship, and the cost for the township to be sponsorship, and what would be equivalent to that sponsorship is $5,999 plus HST. So basically, this would give us as being to have a booth of 10 by 20. Les noms de l'expo, donc, qui serait présenté par la municipalité de Russell. On aurait le nom sur les affiches, les bannières, notre logo sur les affiches et les publicités, notre nom qui serait mentionné au niveau à la radio dans les programmes de communication et de publicité pour l'événement. Puis on aurait aussi les logos sur toutes les publicités. Donc, that $6,000 would give us that. And then we have the option as well above that $6,000 to pay $3,980. That would give us 20 space for our community organization. So basically, they wouldn't have to pay for their booth. That would be included for 20 of the organization. So basically, we have the opportunity to be sponsorship of the event, and that would be the cost to the township. We have the option to only pay that $6,000 without the community aspect of it. And then in the report, we've also prepared a table that would show what is also the cost that would be equivalent to the event as well. So basically, the location of the slab is the $6,117.25 for the 5 days. So basically, they need to get into the space on Thursday to give the businesses enough time to settle. And then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday would be, the Saturday and Sunday would be the event. And then usually they unpack on Monday for the bigger businesses as well. So that's why you have the table that would show that 5 days would be the equivalent for the slab, which is $6,117.25. Plus, we have the room upstairs of the arena, which is the equivalent of $475 for the room, and as well the employee salaries that would be equivalent for those days, which is equivalent of $2,600. So we've presented to council many options. Basically, the first option would be that we be sponsorship for the event at that $6,000 without the community organization, so without the $4,000, and that council would grant the slab costs and the employees to the event. And then the second option would be that we be a full sponsorship, including the community organization, so including the $4,000, and that council would also grant the slab and the employee time. And then the third option would be que l'organisation soit faite par Anisa de Communication à l'Arena d'Embrun sans que nous, on soit commanditaire et que le conseil approuve did I mixed up the
Yeah,
options?
1 and 3, you just mixed up. That's okay.
Sorry. So you have all the option in front of you, and the cost. I just want to point out that in the report, we should have included the cost of the slab and the cost of the employees because they're not exempt. We actually have those costs. So we did have the table prepared, so I don't know if it would be better to, was it shared to?
Yeah, it was
Okay.
part of the report, so
Okay,
we
sounds
saw all
good.
the costs.
Okay.
Okay, questions? Councillor Deakin, Conseil Lorrain?
I think it's excellent and exciting to bring an event like this to Embrun in particular, and to see something like local flavors come back and featuring businesses. There's so many options available here that I am tempted to look at negotiating and figuring out what works well for the township in order to help make this event happen and make sure that it benefits our community as much as it benefits those organizers that are putting it on. So glad that they're considering coming to our community. So just to underscore again, that's around $10,000 that we would be providing in kind through staff and space by providing the space.
Close. If we,
Around 10K.
yeah, just under
Yeah.
10K, yes.
And have we calculated, do we have any sense of the value of township promoting this event? Because presumably, if it were an event that we were sponsoring, we would be promoting it through township channels, which would therefore benefit as well the organizers of the event. Has that factored into the calculations?
That hasn't been discussed, no. I don't think so.
Okay.
Madame Tremblay?
No, it has not been discussed.
Not to
Obviously-
undersell ourselves on that.
Yeah, exactly. So it would
Yeah.
be extra to our communication officer that would post on Facebook.
I really like the idea of bringing in community organizations, and we've done things like that in the past where we've supported participation of folks who likely wouldn't be able to participate in certain events. So I really like that option. I'm just looking at the value that we're probably placing into this event already and wondering if that full partnership isn't already there in that 10K in kind. So to summarize, I would propose a fourth option, which is sponsoring those community organization spots and considering our in-kind sponsorship to have us as a lead sponsor of the event itself.
Sorry, so you're essentially saying the $6,000 for the community aspect, cash, right?
It would be 3,900, I think, was for the 20 tables
Oh, yeah, so
for
the-
community organizations.
Yeah,
And that we would already be providing 10,000 plus because of our promotional support as well in kind as a lead sponsor.
okay.
I'm tempted to negotiate because there's so many options here, but if folks just want to go all in, I could be swayed that way as well.
Okay. Councillor Lorrain?
Yeah, I just need a little bit of clarification on where the funds would come from. I see the event will be covered by GL X, Y, and Z and GL X, Y, and Y. I have no idea what those GLs are, so if I can have an understanding of where the proposed funds are coming from in terms that I may understand.
Yeah, and as well, what the impact of coming out of those GLs would be as well, Madame Tremblay?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So obviously, we didn't include any specific money in the budget for that type of project this year. However, we had included, let's say, for $2,000, usually what we plan for our Rendez-vous des Saveurs Locales. We took some money and pick and choose where we had event that we were supposed to maybe held this year, and then that's where the GLs are coming from. So that's where the 10,000 is coming from. For example, there's $2,000 coming from le Rendez-vous des Saveurs Locales. And then there's other amounts like this that were coming from other events as well.
So clarification then, so if we took the funds from those GLs, we would be affecting the Saveurs Locales project. The Meet Me on Main Streets would probably be affected as well because it's the same.
So through Mr. Mayor, we didn't touch the funds for the Meet Me on Main Street, so those are untouched.
Those
So
are
we have a
untouched.
$5,000 for the Meet Me on Main Street because we sponsor the one in Marionville as well, and the one that we're gonna organize this year in Embrun.
And
So
Russell.
those funds are not touched.
And Russell.
And Russell, sorry.
Yes, okay, just making sure.
Yeah.
Councillor Lorrain?
Yeah, so I'm just trying to get clarity on what the recommendation is. as the recommendation from staff, the number 1, number 2, or number 3? Because I know we're going to decide, but what is the recommendation from administration?
So, Monsieur Godin, Madame Tremblay.
It's a good question. It's a lot of information to digest in one day. To be honest, this report was produced in the afternoon since we've met and we've tried to negotiate as well with the applicant so that we could include, let's say, ICE in the package of that $7,000. So we've tried to negotiate all week and then produce that report. I know I'm getting to the question, the answer. My recommendation is that I'm not quite sure that we're going to have enough time for our first event this year to gather enough businesses in order to be successful. Having that discussion with Madame Lizotte, she was not concerned as I was concerned, so she's the professional, so that's my personal opinion, to be honest. I would prefer to hold it next year and have the funds and know exactly when it's going to be held and then make the proper publicity in order to move forward and have, like I said, budgeted amounts to be able to do so and not to have to cancel other events that we plan in our business plan and to be held this year.
Okay. It essentially you're throwing a fourth option in there to say, I don't want to have it this year. We're going to throw it, we should have it next year.
Madame Tremblay?
Is what I just heard.
At the same time, the department didn't want to make that decision in a sense that we know that it's important to promote our eco-dev and our businesses, and we didn't want to be in the position that we were going to say no without having this presentation in front of council and council
Having that
having
discussion.
that discussion.
So if we don't partner or sponsor the event for $6,000, are they coming?
I've asked the question. I'm not sure if they would come.
Okay, so that's kind of contingent on this project. So the community option, so then I assume that this person is a professional, they will get the people and the businesses themselves to come in. So then we would need to sponsor the $4,000 for our businesses because, like you just said, we may not be able to get them in and fill those spots where she should be able to fill those spots because that's what she does. That's her business, right? And that's what she's promoting. The community, from a community grants perspective, I would expect us to add money to that fund because I want to make sure we would do it properly, put it in the right spots so it's allocated, so that going forward we know that we spent this much in rental fees that were exempted. Well, we're not exempting. We're actually going to put the money from one GL into the other GL and not exempt us from a process, but follow a process, just increase the funding on a one-off basis for this year. Does an EcoDev GL, I'm assuming we have an EcoDev GL, do we have $8,800 or sorry, 6,000 plus 23 plus 4, no, not the 4. 6,000 for the sponsorship, 6,500 for the hall, and 2,300. Was that $14,800?
I can,
Monsieur Dagenet?
yes. As of now, the 6,000 and the 4,000, Madame Tremblay did find someplace in the budget, but she had to move. There's things that won't happen because of that. And the other 10,000, that is more in kind, is not in the budget also. So we'll have to find it somewhere else too.
So if I can bring a little bit of clarity as far as the numbers go. So in regards to the slab itself, and I had a discussion with Madame Guital today, really the arena staff and the slab, if the event were to happen, the real expense is the
Cleanup.
is the cleanup, is the employees. That's the cost. The slab itself, there's no cost to it. We're just choosing now potential loss of revenue. If somebody else wants to rent it, then we're giving it away, then we don't have that potential revenue. But the actual cost to the corporation is the staff time. If the event doesn't happen, there's no staff time, there's no loss of revenue because we're not getting either one. So for me, the slab itself, I would be willing to, offset, if you will, and we can, from a budgeting perspective, there is no real cost, but, we'll let finance be finance and figure that one out. It's really for me, it's if we're willing to pay the staff time, because that's the real cost in this case. I think that's correct. Yeah, that's, eh? With no other sponsorship. If we said to the private business, go ahead, we'll give you the slab for free, and, we can figure out what we want to do with the staff, then it can move forward. Whether we want to pay for the community partners or whether we want to be a partner itself, that's part of this discussion, so. Councillor Tarnowski and Conseiller Lalonde?
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. So I think the idea is a great idea. The company background and just doing my own research on the background is really limited to the events in Rockland. And you said Hawkesbury as well? I didn't see that, but so so I think any event like this will take a few years to where they need to be nurtured a little bit to grow. I think it's a little overambitious to think that they'll have the success that they're claiming they're going to have in the first year. So I'm happy to support that, but I agree with you. I would prefer a low-risk option, i.e. space. The staffing, I'd like to just make sure that we are all on the same page in terms of what the true expectation is for the staffing. I know we put a value to it, but just to make sure that we're all on the same page, I'd be okay with that. And I would feel that is a sponsorship. That's a full sponsorship, as Councillor Deakin mentioned. And I had here in my notes distribution channels as well. Our promotion, through our distribution channels is really, I think, adds a lot of value as well to the success of it. So I would consider us a main sponsor based on those donations. Thank you.
Thank you. Conseiller Lalonde?
Si, Monsieur le Maire. I consider it to be a good idea, but to be frank and listening to Madame Tremblay, I tend to agree that I find it a bit ambitious to we're in the middle of February, to get this ready, to get the communication pieces out and the marketing that goes with that, to get that interest, to get all those groups interested in being there. I think it's a little ambitious. I mean, I've been through this kind of stuff myself as a job, and when I think of the time that it takes to put these things together, and I assume the ice will be out in time, but even that's a bit of a tight fit. I love the concept itself, but if I thought it was the only thing we were going to have here this summer, I would also probably lean heavy towards it. To Councillor Tarnowski's point, there'll be some growing pains, but we have the Meet Me on Main Street, we have the other events that is bringing out a lot of local business. So I'm of two minds here. I think if you're talking about the slab itself being, probably the big ticket item in terms of making it available, and maybe it's just really the cost of the staff. So I would tend to go in entry level on this. I'm not even sure that, it'll be up to everyone else to decide whether Township wants to take the lead on the promotion, but I'm just going to go back to saying I think it would be a great idea for next year. I think it needs more time to plan. I think, at the beginning of May, we're already end of Feb. By the time this gets rolling is March. We know how challenging it can be to put on a major event and do a lot of publicity and marketing for it and still be challenged. So I find the time frame very short for this. But I guess I would support an entry-level position on the part of Township, which is, we can make the slab available and maybe the staff. But I don't know that I would support the other costs and the promotion and the rest of it and the time of staff to do that.
Thank you. Any other, Councillor Lorrain?
Yeah, just to clarify for myself, so are our staff doing the promotion and all of this stuff, or is that this organization that's doing that? I'm assuming it's the organization that's taking care of all of that stuff and getting all that ready. That's not us, right? Because I would agree that it would take a lot of staff time to get this developed, put it out there, but if it's coming from an organization that does this for a living, then 3 months is not is long enough for them to actually do it if that's what they do day in and day out. And they're the ones coming to us saying, hey, we can do this. Are you on board? Do you want to have this in your community? Yeah, I want to have this in my community. Can you do it? Then yeah, absolutely. What do you need from us? So that's part of it. As long as it's not us, then yeah, go nuts. If they can't put it on by that time, then okay, then we don't jump in, and we'll help you book for next year, and we'll get that all going. But I think we need to be, so I'm in favor. I'm in favor of supporting this event. I'd love any exposure to our community that we can get. But we need to make sure that we're consistent with our approach to the in-kind donations that we do for all of our groups. Like let's use Célébrer Ensemble as an example. They get a monetary and they get an in-kind. Well, what does that in-kind encompass? That encompasses the facilities, that encompasses staff time, that encompasses all that stuff. So we account for that in our budget. Well, I have a problem not accounting for it properly for another event. So that's why I'm saying if we're going to do it on one side, we have to account for it somewhere.
Right.
And it is an offset. And I've always said that, we're offsetting, we're taking from one GL and we're putting it into the recreation GL to be able to put on the community grants. Well, then we need to show it. So I agree from that perspective that we need to do that. The 2,300 for staff,
2,600, yeah.
or whatever, I heard 23, so I guess I could turn my hearing aid up a bit. But 2,600 for staff, is that overtime, or is that just what the staff gets paid to do their job on a day-to-day basis? And we're just dedicating them to this event.
So,
What's that piece?
Yeah, Monsieur Godin, Madame Guittard?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. No, that's extra hours. So let's say they start on Thursday night, because the ice is off at that time, all staff finish at 4. So if these people wants to, do some setup on Thursday night, Friday night, I need some staff there. So that's extra staff.
Okay,
Saturday and Sunday.
so the 2,600 is extra hours.
Extra hours. I did not calculate, let's on the Monday, let's be honest. We'll have a major cleanup to do on the slab. They're gonna be gone, they're gonna be taking out their stuff. I did not account for any extra staff, which we might need some extra hands that day to clean up, but this was not accounted for.
Okay.
We only accounted for really straight extra hours, which is mostly at night, Thursday and Friday, Saturday and Sunday.
So $8,800 encompasses the $6,500 in-kind for the community hall, or $6,100, I'm rounding up. Call it $6,500 for the hall, $2,600. I guess that's a little more now. Just over $9,000 is what you're looking for us to be able to provide that as an in-kind, essentially, for those two things, without a sponsorship of the event or a partnership of the event. I agree. That is enough as a partnership. You're given $9,000 of space, but I'm finding it a little difficult that we're taking a little bit here and a little bit there and a little bit there and we may not do this event or this thing. I want to make sure, do we not have $9,000 in an eco-dev GL that we can apply to this? We bring in money for other things under economic development, do we not? And we reserve for it? We don't have $9,000 in an eco-dev budget somewhere?
So, Monsieur Godin, Madame Tremblay, I think we went through the budget process and everything is in and out is accounted for. So I understand in regards to the 6,000, like you say, we increase the GL for the in-kind and it's just transferred over You know,
Yeah,
that,
that's,
it's the facilities, it's really the dollar value of where, how are we going to pay the employees? That's where, which GL is that coming out of, realistically? So we're talking 2,600, $3,000, we'll roll it up to $3,000. Where are we going to get the $3,000 from? There's no line item in the budget. Currently, if we were to take it out of ACO Dev, then that means we're affecting potentially local flavors rendezvous. Is that fair assumption?
If we were to sponsor the community part of it?
No. Si pour le staff,
Ouais.
if we were
Okay,
take,
just the staff amount to be covered under EcoDev.
yeah, if we did that, then you're affecting the local flavors rendezvous. We're essentially taking that money to pay for this, correct?
Yeah, we could, I said, we found 10,000 somewhere, projects.
Yes.
So obviously, it would, something that would be affected, so we're pretty tight in the EcoDev. It's really listed on what we had, but obviously, we could find $3,000.
So,
that would
may-
cover that
maybe
part.
I'll make a suggestion here. If we're talking about the $2,600, between all of us, we can take it out of our discretionary budgets. We never spend all of our money at our discretionary budgets. So we could take it out, $500 each. There we go. If you want, I'll do 1,000 and everybody else do 400 or whatever the case is. We can find it that way. I'm not too worried about that. It's just really, I would love to see the event go forward. I think, as mentioned, the feeling seems to be that the slab and the staff is enough of a partnership on our end to make this move forward. So
for this year.
For this year. So, Councillor Deacon?
I just want to underscore as well the value of the distribution channels, as Councillor Tarnowski put it, that Russell Township, believe it or not, has one of the largest audiences on social media in Russell Township, which is a great thing and has quite a lot of value that will support the success of the event as well. As Councillor Lorrain said, I'm in support of this in spirit, and I would be in support of the, I guess that would be option 3, I believe we're going back to, where we provide those two things in kind.
Option 1.
Option 1, thank you.
Without being a sponsor. Yeah.
I mean, I believe that the sponsorship is there through what we're providing in terms of space and slab, so that's what I would go back with, is just really underscoring the dollar value that we're providing to the event already.
Okay. Councillor Tarnowski?
Yeah, so just based on what you said, Mr. Mayor, so without being a sponsor, I'm with Councillor Deacon that the value that we're providing should be making us a full sponsor, like the main sponsor. So I would be in agreement going with this option based on no outlay outside of the 3,000, but we are a main sponsor on that. I don't know that we would need to add more value to that.
Okay. Madame Tremblay?
So that was my first suggestion. So as part of the 7,000, that we would be full sponsorship and would cover staff and, but that's a presentation that we got back after our conversation. So I don't think that was an option.
So if that's the will of council, if that's the
Yeah.
direction we want to go in, that's what council is willing to accept. If the proponent's not willing to accept that, then, that's just the reality, so. Madame Tremblay?
So if I don't know if we have the presentation. That
It was part of our
attached. Yeah.
package.
So if we could just, so that I'm clear on what the expectations are. So in the PowerPoint presentation, at slide 12, it says basically the 6,000, what it covers. And you would want to have all of this plus slab and employee time as a,
Yeah, instead of paying the $6,000?
yeah, you would pay the full amount as the 9,000,
No, we're not paying a penny.
okay?
What we're doing is we're contributing all the all the slab,
Yeah.
which is 6,000, and the staff time, which is another 3,000. We're providing $9,000 worth of value.
Yeah,
And
so
the
12.
distribution channel.
And,
which hasn't
and
been
helping,
calculated.
help the distribution channel to help get the word out. So there's no funds being distributed?
But I just want to make sure that you have this as, because you said that we would become the main sponsor with that contribution, right? So that's the,
That's the expectation of council.
Yeah.
Is that we are the main sponsor, but we're not providing funds. What we're providing is the slab and the staff time
yeah.
to
And I
as
just want to,
contribution in kind.
understand the main sponsor. Those are what was proposed as a main sponsor.
Yeah. Councillor Tarnowski?
Juste pour s'assurer qu'on est sur la
Mhm.
même page. Ça, normalement, ils voulaient, eux autres, avec 6 000 de plus, ils voulaient aussi avoir la slab puis les employés. Ça, nous, ce qu'on dit, c'est qu'on ne donne pas 6 000, on leur donne la slab, les employés et le distribution channels pour faire la promotion, pour avoir du succès à l'événement. Pour la première année, puis après ça, comme conseiller Lorrain a dit, pour renégocier, on verra.
Madame Tremblay?
Oui, puis merci pour la clarification. Ce que je voulais mentionner, c'est que je voulais savoir, est-ce qu'en étant le main sponsor, est-ce qu'on veut encore que le 10 par 20, le booth, qu'on soit le nom de Russell, soit sur les banderoles, soit sur la... Donc, je voulais juste mentionner que notre contribution va nous apporter ça aussi.
Oui.
C'est parfait. C'est
Right,
ce que
that's the understanding I'm
Okay.
getting from everybody. Councillor Deacon?
I would prefer that any benefits from the partnership that we get be directed to the community organizations. That's why I was talking about that option in the slide 13. We could have a table. We don't need a 10 by 20 showcase. But so it would be nice to have some presence of township there. But I would like to, if we're getting any benefits from that in-kind sponsorship, I would prefer that the majority of those benefits be directed to the option communautaire, which would also help fill the room, if that's one of the concerns in this year one.
So, okay. So are we saying instead of the 10 by 20, we want the space for, I just want to make sure we're clear into the direction council's going here. So we don't need a booth. However, we would like to see the 20 spaces filled by community organizations. Or-
There's a whole list. Si vous pouvez retourner au deuxième diapo.
Because,
Juste après, la prochaine.
Oui, c'est juste l'espace. Hein.
La prochaine. Non, après.
Non, c'était là, le deuxième, oui.
12. Essentiellement, 12, c'est juste notre logo, notre
Oui,
nom,
oui, oui.
tout partout. C'est vraiment juste le 10 par 20 qui est...
Insertion communautaire.
Moi, je trouverais ça bizarre d'avoir un espace comme showcase all municipality all the time. So I think a modest space for the municipality plus spaces for the community would be what I would prefer.
Madame Tremblay?
Je vais faire l'avocat du diable. En tant qu'organisatrice, je suis certaine que les espaces seraient plus bénéfiques, surtout si on ne donne pas de contribution financière, d'avoir des entreprises qui payent le prix pour les booths. Ça récupérerait un peu plus de fonds que d'avoir des organisations communautaires qui ne payent pas. Donc, il faut vraiment se baser sur c'est quoi l'intention de l'organisation. Puis si on ne donne pas de contribution, comme oui, on donne une contribution au niveau de la glace, du staff time, mais pas de contribution monétaire pour aider l'organisation, j'assume que l'organisatrice voudrait avoir des entreprises qui vont payer pour leur espace pour aider puis faire que ce soit un bon fonctionnement et non pas prendre 20 espaces pour des espaces communautaires, puisqu'on a déjà d'autres événements dans la municipalité qui pourraient remplir ce besoin-là au niveau des organismes communautaires.
And just to remind everybody, we just saw Living Locally Fair, right? That a lot of organizations had the ability of our local social organizations to participate in at a very reduced cost. I mean, that event was put on by volunteers and, we helped them out, but it wasn't an expensive partnership in our case. Let's try and wrap this up. Councillor Tarnowski?
OK. Je suis d'accord sur les points de conseiller Deacon. Et au niveau des kiosques, moi, j'aimerais mieux voir les communautaires aussi, mais je suis d'accord. Mais eux autres, ce qu'ils proposent, c'est 90 kiosques. Fait que si on parle de donner 10 kiosques ou 10 à 15 kiosques pour des organismes communautaires, je pense que ça serait raisonnable pour l'option partenariat. Puis je suis d'accord avec conseillère Deacon au niveau de l'espace pour showcaser le township, comme une petite table, là, c'est correct. Comme like living locally fair, the firemen were there, like that. That to me, that's good.
So, I think, so let's break this down. So everybody's in agreement that we're actually not giving funds, right? Is that the first thing? Everybody's in agreement? We're not giving physical cash.
I'm told that we don't have the money, so if we don't
Okay.
have the money, then we can't give the cash.
Just making sure that we're all on the same page. Second point is that our expectation is that we are considered a partner by giving the slab and giving the staff time as that's our contribution. What I'm hearing is that we would like to see some thing given to our community organizations to be able to participate in this event. So how about we just give to the direction, to the administration, to speak with the organizer and see what kind of, what can be figured out, and maybe it'll go ahead, maybe it won't go ahead, but those are discussions that the administration can have. The administration understands our willingness and where we're willing to go. And we'll see, if you need to bring it back to council, fine. If you don't need to, and, you can move ahead, then you understand the wishes of council in this case. So really, our direction would be to move forward with the option where it is one, but we still expect the sponsorship, right? So, Councillor Lowe?
Just want a clarification. I mean, I'm good with this in principle, but I noticed in some of the literature that ça parlait de business régional. Est-ce qu'on est assez certain que les commerces dont on parle vont principalement venir de notre municipalité et pas trop d'ailleurs, parce qu'il y avait mention de regional? Est-ce qu'ils ont précisé ça?
Madame Tremblay?
Oui, merci pour la question. Donc, oui, les entreprises locales vont avoir priorité sur la réservation pour un certain bout de temps, puis une couple de semaines avant que l'événement se passe, on ouvre l'invitation aux autres organismes. Donc, les organismes locaux ont priorité.
Okay. I'll just add, I'm not sure Councillor Lorraine would have been here at the time, but this was tried, I want to say, over 10 years ago as well. I'm not sure who, I don't think it was the same organization, it was a different organization. But essentially at the time, they tried to do something very similar. And when they saw the costs, no local business jumped in because the costs were exorbitant. In this case, we're talking about $700 for the weekend. At that time, our local businesses said no, and the event never happened because there was no uptick from local businesses. So, I mean, if the businesses want to participate, that'll be up to them, and hopefully it can proceed. But so, Madame Camille-Laflamme will have to remove this item and tweak the wording a little bit, so we'll vote on this separately. Okay. Prochain item. Oh, that was the last one. Item 12, reports from investigator and ombudsman. We have none. Item 13, notice motion 1. We have none. Item 14, question period on the meeting of the day. I'll ask anyone who has a question to please state your name and address for the record, please.
Charles Armstrong, 85 Castle Bow in Embrun. First question relates to item 11C, that's the asset management plan. When the contract to Citywide was originally let, was that a competitive bid or was that a sole source contract?
Okay, thank you. Monsieur Godin?
Merci, Monsieur Mayor. So that was a competitive bid. So when we purchased the software for our asset management, it was done in an open form.
Who owns the data in that database?
Monsieur Godin?
Through Mr. Mayor, so the township owns the data.
So are we now, because it's in that Citywide format, are we committed to ongoing contracts with Citywide? Or can we, what will it cost to extract that into some other competing database management system?
Monsieur Godin?
There will be no cost to extract it, and if we would wish to purchase a new software for our asset management tracking, we could do so. Obviously, there would be some administrative work and a lot of implementation costs, but that's always an option that we could move forward with.
Okay.
Will that be looked at for beyond 2025?
Monsieur Godin?
Through Ms. Mayor, so it definitely will be looked at some point in time. Right now, we're very satisfied with Public Sector Digest, which we've been working with for almost 10 years now, as far as everything asset management, be it our database, condition assessments, and different consultation projects. So we've had a lot of projects with them, and we're very satisfied with them. And we've invested a lot in the software as well, so it's not something we're looking to change at this point in time. But definitely, as things move forward, we do always relook at how we do things, and it could be relooked at.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
My next questions relate to item 11E, the expo. And I preface all my stuff with the end does not justify the means. So I'm not arguing about the end here, just the means. As I understand from the report, Anne Lizotte Communications is a private company, and therefore, under the Municipal Act, falls under the definition of, quote, commercial enterprise, unquote. Section 106 prohibits us-
Question? Get to the question, please.
Section 106 prohibits giving assistance to a commercial enterprise. Has anybody vetted this proposal in the light of it being a commercial enterprise? Remembering the other ones that we've talked about are put on
Right.
by not-for-profits.
Correct. This essentially would be hiring an agency to do a service for the township. Correct me if I'm wrong, Monsieur Godin, Madame Tremblay, the two other municipalities that do this enter into a contract for these services? Okay.
I will be looking forward to reading that contract.
Good evening. My name is Rhonda Bradley. I live at 159 Edie. I also have some questions about 11E. My first question is, do we currently have criteria by which we bypass our facility rental bylaw?
Monsieur Godin, Madame Guittard? We have requests for grant proposals. We have community grants program is in effect.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, that's correct. So yes, if you want to say that we're bypassing the user fee, this is how we do it through the community grants, because I have no authority on that, so we go through that
process.
policy, yeah.
Are the community grants related to community organizations or commercial organizations?
I'd have to pull out the exact wording, but we have many requests that come from different organizations, correct? Some community-based, some businesses-based in the past, right?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Yeah, most community groups, nonprofit, but we've had some commercials in the past that council did approve.
And how do we make those decisions? Case by case, or is there some guiding principles?
Yes, the guiding principle is in the community grants policy.
Okay, thank you. My second question related to item E is, I wasn't really clear what the difference was between the expo and the Meet Me on Main Street event. They both seem to have a lot of overlap, and I'm wondering what the capacity of our local marketplace is to have two events that may potentially compete.
So Meet Me on Main Street is very different than an expo. This is very much geared towards the businesses, whereas a Meet Me on Main Street event is more geared towards the community.
But it does feature local business, and does it not?
Some food, local business establishments, food, this would be for any kind of business looking for staff, this would be businesses across the board.
Okay, thank you. I also have a question related to 11C, and again, relating to sole sourcing. As recently as December 11th, 2023, staff came forward requesting a sole source exemption. In this case, it was the Russell Station Trail Park. So my question is, how often are we in an annual year, on an average annual year, making a request of council to go sole source?
So just to clarify, Mr. Godin, correct me if I'm wrong, sole sourcing is an option in our policy. So we're not going against the policy.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
I wasn't suggesting that. I'm asking, how often do we typically approach council with a request for sole sourcing?
So I couldn't pull out the exact numbers, but I believe we get a yearly report as to the contracts given out. Mr. Godin?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. So I don't have the number in front of me as well, or statistics on that. But we do, we prepare quarterly reports to show all our procurement activity above $25,000.
Thank you.
And below?
Not below
Below-
25,000, no.
Below is not reported.
Okay. Item 11A is a report to council, and it combines the proposed change to the postal address for the Vars properties, as well as a rebranding of the industrial park. And I'm not sure I understand what the relationship is between those two items.
Monsieur Godin, Madame Tremblay, it's simply because it's coming from EcoDev.
Yeah, and it was a report for information only to council, that we would proceed with those two, since they're related to the 417 Industrial Park. Since we're changing the address and the name in the address, then we felt that it would be good to do both at the same time.
Thank you.
And there is a note about where it would be taken in terms of budget, but it says that should additional expenses be incurred, they would bring a report back to council. That suggests that there is a budget for this, and I'm asking what the budget is for this rebranding exercise.
Monsieur Godin, Madame Tremblay,
I believe it was 10,000
in the budget.
in the budget.
Okay. Which is GL 64444 based on the report that's in front of us.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next item. Item 15, resolutions. Motion que le Conseil approuve toutes les recommandations énumérées à l'ordre du jour numéro 1, rapport des départements et comités du Conseil. Besoin d'un proposeur, d'un appuyeur, mettre ça à la table, s'il vous plaît. Moved by Councillor Deakin, seconded by Conseiller Lorrain. Need an amendment to remove item E. Moved by Councillor Tarnowski, seconded by Conseiller Lalonde to remove item E. Any other items we want to remove? Seeing none, we'll vote on everything except R. Let's vote on the amendment. All those in favor? Opposed? The amendment is carried. Now vote on the resolution, everything except E. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. So item E, Expo in the Township of Russell, need a mover and a seconder, please, to put on table. Moved by Councillor Tarnowski, seconded by Councillor Lorrain. So based on the discussions, I would make one small change to the options. It says that council receive report EcoDev 2024-01 dated February 12, 2024, and approve one of the following recommendations. Number one is that Anne Lisette Communications be allowed to organize the event Expo at the Ember Marina on May 4th and 5th, 2024, without the municipality being a sponsor of the event, and the council approve that arena fees and employee salaries be exempted. I would just suggest we make a slight change, being a financial sponsor of the event, but we are still a partner, right? So would that word financial be enough, or would you like more changes? Conseiller Lorrain?
Should we not maybe re-evaluate that language a little bit further and just essentially say we are purchasing the services of this organization for $9,000, whatever the number is, $10,000, whatever that number is. We are entering a contract for
In-kind services.
in-kind services of this event. And maybe we do not then run it through the community grants program. If it's not a community event, potentially, then we do it as a straight contract right from those GLs. And we're hiring a private private company, that's the word?
So then, if that's the case, then I would suggest that the wording be that Anne Lisette Communications be hired to organize the event Expo at the Ember Marina on May 4th and 5th, 2024, with the municipality being a sponsor for the event, and the council approve that the arena fees and employee salaries be exempted. Right?
But we're not exempting it. We're gonna provide them with X amount of funding to cover off the arena fees and the salary.
Right, so that Anne Lisette Communications be hired to organize the event Expo at the Ember Marina on May 4th and 5th, 2024. That's okay so far. With the township being a sponsor and its contribution being location and staffing.
Yeah. But it's not just the 4th and the 5th though, right? It's for $6,500, it's the 5 days.
Right, but the event itself is only on the 4th and the
Okay.
5th.
Okay.
Right. Councilor Tarnowski?
My issue with the hiring piece is this entity that's going to be hired is going to run an event and make money on it. So we're not hiring them, we're contracting out. It's not hiring someone.
Well, you know what, honestly, the proponents left the meeting. So, you know, I'm not expecting this thing to move forward. So I think that's the reality, you know, that this
It's
event.
still important what we
Yep.
agree on here, but we're not, I don't think we're hiring.
So
this
how about,
person.
we
Just
we
our-
Our financial contribution to a maximum of the cost of salaries and,
let's make it a lot simpler. Let's defer this item and give direction to the administration to bring back a report if it needs to move forward.
I agree.
Because we don't even know if it's going to move forward at this point in time. Would everybody be okay with that? Madame Tremblay?
Si par exemple, elle décide d'aller de l'avant pareil,
Oui,
we can't wait to another meeting, right?
we can call a special virtual meeting to get it done, if that's the case.
I would maybe just suggest if the recommendation would be that the equivalent of the sponsorship is, because we still want to be main sponsorship, right? So in the recommendation, it would say the same as what it says in number 1, and that the municipality being a sponsor of the equivalent of the cost of the arena and the staff.
What I'm saying is by deferring this, that gives you the opportunity to work out all the details with the proponent, come back to us at a special meeting if needed,
Okay.
and we'll have proper wording at that point in time.
Okay.
Would everybody be okay with that? Need a mover and a seconder to defer. Moved by Councillor Tarnowski, second by Conseiller Lalonde. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 16, bylaws and attachments. Motion that council approve bylaws 2024-011 and 2024-012 for first, second, and third reading as listed on the agenda. This is the bylaw in regards to report SASFS 2024 for item 11B and the New Year's exemption for 11D. Need a mover and a seconder put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Tarnowski, seconded by Councillor Deakin. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 17, new business reports, we have none. 18, other business presented by council members, myself, resolution to support Ontario Energy Board decision. So we need a mover and a seconder to put that on the floor. Moved by Councillor Lalonde, seconded by Councillor Tarnowski. Questions, comments on this resolution? Councillor Deakin?
I just want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, for bringing this resolution to the table tonight. And I think I speak for everyone when I say nobody wants to see the gas prices go up. I was reading a bit of the background from the Ontario Energy Board on what brought them to the decision to slash the amortization from 40 years for new connections. And their rationale was actually to keep rates low long-term for gas customers. Because as soon as you have a stranded asset, somebody is paying for that. And that would be the ratepayers that are left on gas at that point during this energy transition, so to speak. Also, understanding that the Ontario Energy Board is a nonpartisan appointed board acting solely in residents' interest, the public's interest, I tend to not be in favor of supporting the resolution tonight.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Item 18B, Councillor Tarnowski, discussion on standing agenda item.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. So I'd like to discuss the question period on meaning of the day agenda item tonight. So I wanted to bring this up for discussion as I believe that our current practices of having a blank discussion period on meaning of the day does little to support principles of open and accessible government. In my experience, the typical questions, especially of late, have often turned more into statements and seem more aimed at undermining staff than constructively contributing to the council business or our community's well-being. Please don't get me wrong. There have been subjects that elicit some great questions that provide residents and council important opportunities to see different perspectives on essential subjects, decisions that we have to do. I don't want to get rid of that. I think those are extremely important. As it stands, agendas are published 5 days before council meetings. I regularly myself receive questions and comments emailed to me beforehand, which gives me time to, one, get answers for residents, and two, more importantly, have the opportunity to consider different perspectives towards decisions that we're often asked to consider. So outside of the question period, we already have tools that provide essential opportunities for engagement from our resident. So as I mentioned before, access to council members through email. Residents are always able to contact staff with questions. Residents can bring delegations to council. We've seen this often certainly over my experience. And I believe that councillors, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe councillors can request to suspend rules of procedure and have a question period on meeting of the day when critical issues arise in front of council. And, examples, there have been some great examples, certainly in my time here, where definitely a question period or an opportunity for residents to bring their points of view, I think is really important. So in summary, I reiterate that my goal in bringing this up for discussion is not about reducing transparency or public participation, but it's about improving the quality of our meetings and enhancing the quality and effectiveness of our residents' engagement. So I would like to hear my colleagues' thoughts on removing the question period as a standing agenda item, knowing that we can always add it by suspending rules of procedure when important issues warrant it. So if in agreement, after the discussion, I would like to give notice that we open the procedural bylaw at our next meeting and propose the removal of item 10.3.11, question period meeting of the day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ternosky. Questions, comments, members of council? Councillor Deacon?
When I tell councillors from other municipalities that we have a standing question item, they are surprised, usually. They find that that's really an outlier. I don't know if that means that they've all removed it or that they never had it as a standing item, but just to say that it is, amongst my peers, seems to be unique. And I want to say that I'm open to further discussion on this, the potential of removing it as a standing item. Whenever I'm looking at what I'm leaving behind, I'm more interested in asking the question, what am I moving towards? And there are a lot of different ways that we're engaging with the public between council and administration. I would like to see more understanding of what that engagement looks like from the administration side, especially. I had some questions here. How are residents engaging with administration? How many inquiries are fielded per month? How many are related to the agenda specifically? I'd like to know, are we meeting service standards when it comes to replying within a reasonable time frame? I dare say we may be even exceeding those standards that we set for ourselves. In my experience, that's been the case. Looking at our strategic plan, there's some things there that kind of point to public engagement, and we don't have the township does not yet have a public engagement policy. So I want to move in that direction of all those things that I just stated as part of this conversation.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Councillor Lalonde?
Yeah, I'd like to echo comments of Councillor Deacon and Tarnowski. I think if we could get some bit of information back from staff. I understand, and my experience has been, albeit brief here, but still, it's been over a year and a half or close to that, of recognizing that some of the questions that are asked at our meetings have actually already been asked to staff on previous occasions. And I know staff, at least for councillors and residents that I speak with, have always been accessible in terms of fielding questions. I would say that by the same token, there have been comments made at meetings that I have found a little troubling, even disappointing at times. It seems like the questions are preceded with a comment, sometimes a disparaging remark. There was one evening when we were here where the integrity of this council was put into question before the question itself was actually asked. And I think that was a disappointment to me, because I know how hard our councillors are working, certainly myself, in studying up on the issues of the day, fielding our own questions well in advance to staff. And to have those remarks made ahead of a question that our own integrity is being challenged, first of all, has no place at these meetings. They are supposed to be questions of the day. Secondly, as I mentioned, it's almost as if the opportunity is being used as a soapbox to voice disagreement or anger, rather than to bring the question on the agenda items of the day. So I now sort of couple up with the comments made by Councillor Deakin that I think there are other venues and opportunities for these questions, or for opportunities with the public, be it a town hall event from time to time, where actually the public has the chance to go well beyond our agenda and just ask questions in the more general sense than as relates to some of these particular nuts and bolts issues on administrative practice or budget line items, which, again, I'll say I find would be much easier just to ask the staff in an email rather than to bring it to council to present in front of all of us. So I like the idea of the discussion, maybe expanding on, what are some of the things we might think of replacing this with. But I do support Councillor Tarnowski's suggestion that maybe we do away with this item, and maybe we can deal with that and finalize that at the next regular meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lorraine, anything to add?
I'll just add that for my 17 years on council, I've been a strong proponent and against any removal of this item at every opportunity that has arisen over that period of time, for many different reasons. And I mean, I've seen it go from open question period to question period on meeting of the day to, questions, and over that time, a lot of the questions are operational in nature. They're not for council. They are requests of staff. So I would like to see some sort of a review of all the information and get some details and see if truly questions are to council or are they administrative questions. And if the answer is overwhelmingly administrative, then what are we doing, right? Council is available for the most part. I'll use the term 24/7, but I mean, we've got phones, we've got text, we've got social media, some social media, we have our email. Like, we are accessible. If you want to ask a question directly of a council member, when's the last time you emailed them? When's the last time you called them? Whoever is asking a question, you want to know what your councillor thinks? Call them, email them. Like, ask them to meet at a local establishment. Like, I talk to people all the time. I see them at the arena. I see them at the grocery store. I see them getting coffee. Like, I talk to a lot of people and they ask questions. That is always available to people. So do people need to strictly come here to ask a question that's administrative in nature and not necessarily from a council? I don't know. So I'm interested to see in whether or not my decision will change with this information. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Deakin?
I forgot to mention earlier that one of the folks that I put this to in a different area of the province, their council uses, has a consent items correspondence piece on their agenda. And I'm not sure if we get if we've ever had the council correspondence in the agenda itself as a standing item, but the council then would see whatever has gone to the clerk from residents in terms of questions and answers. Just putting it out there that when I was speaking with them and they had a look of surprise that we were still doing it, that they offered that was their alternative.
Yeah. I'm not sure the reaction of the residents seeing their name published on a consent item agenda because they sent an email. I'm not sure how comfortable they would be with that. We'd have to make sure that it's clearly indicated that this will be part of council's correspondence. But interesting. Yeah. Yeah. So I'll share my thoughts. One, depending on the topic, I completely agree with Councillor Lorrain. I find it more beneficial to have a conversation with someone about something as opposed to a question coming up. I think, I always get questions or comments from members of the public, if they say, oh, I heard this is on the agenda, yeah, let's talk about it. Out of the 444 municipalities in Ontario, the vast majority do not have a question period. That's all I've heard. Every training I've taken with AMO, from new councillor training to mayor position training, that's the same thing we hear over and over, is that most municipalities do not have a question period at their council meetings. Delegations. We have the opportunity for members of the public, if it's something that is of high priority, that they want all members of council to inform us about or discuss or raise concerns. Delegations are a way to do it, obviously, if it brings value to the discussions, right? And of course, suspending the rules of procedure. We've done that numerous times during a council meeting where we say, you know what, there's a whole bunch of people in the room. The Heritage District is a good one. We've done that for Heritage District, Maison Interlude, 417 Industrial Park, where we say, let's have a question period on that item. So that's still available to us if we feel the need to do that. So that being said, Councillor Tarnowski is asking that this be brought back at the next meeting because anytime we deal with the procedural bylaw, we have to give notice. So if council is giving notice, this would be the day. What kind of information are you looking for specifically from staff that you would need to have a further conversation on this item? Councillor Deakin?
Just to reiterate, I'm looking for more clarity on public engagement policy of the administration, which I don't believe exists quite yet, but there is something in the strat plan that kind of nods to it, but I don't have that clarity quite yet. I'd like to know what direction we're going in as a township in terms of public engagement strategically. And just in terms of data, or even just a sense from the clerk's office in terms of what does come in related to the agenda, what are the typical response times, what are the standards that the clerk's office is held to in terms of response times on those questions that come in. I'm sure I could find that myself, but that's something that I would like to be part of the discussion.
Yeah. I'm not sure we can have that for the next meeting, Monsieur Godin. Probably not, but I'll let you weigh in on that one.
Merci, Mr. Masso. I'm not sure how easily accessible the statistics are. I know all departments receive a lot of emails from a lot of the public and respond to those emails. We can definitely look at, it might be narrative, it might be more of a narrative, more than actual stats, identifying exactly how many calls or how many emails we receive and respond to. But we can put some general information together, and I can consult with staff to see what we do have and what we do track and how we can bring that forward.
Okay. Councillor Lorrain, is there something specific you want to see?
I guess I was of the understanding that was part of the request, that staff were going to look back and see what types of questions were coming in from the actual meetings and say, well, these were 95%, I'm throwing a number, I don't know what the number is, are requests that would have been handled directly by administration. Well, then those could be done through an email, or a phone call. Then is it worth having a public question period for the 5% of the questions that then could have been asked of council in many different ways, whether it be through text, through email, or whatever? Okay, then that may be, an option to say yes, then, delete it or get rid of that section. But just to clarify, if we open the procedure bylaw next meeting, then it would still be another meeting before
No.
council votes on it.
No. If we're basically giving notice today that it would be question period is being removed at the next meeting. Now, if at the next meeting we say, oh, we want something else, then that would require that day being noticed. So you have to give notice, which is essentially today, and then in 2 weeks' time. That's what,
But procedurally, I'm going to ask the clerk,
yep.
is this the proper procedure, or do you actually have to put it on the agenda and make sure that everyone sees what we're doing and what the request is, and that it's been broadcast so that people know that we're opening the policy? Because that's why you have to do it. I'm assuming that you have to make sure
Yeah.
that there's public notice that you're doing it, but in a proper format, not just a verbal format. I'm just asking the question because I want to make sure we follow the proper procedure
Yep.
by doing this.
So, Madame Camry-Laflamme?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So the procedural bylaw does not indicate verbal or written. So it does say, no amendment or repeal of this bylaw or any part thereof shall be considered at any meeting of the council unless notice of the proposed amendment, which could be tonight or next meeting, depending, or repeal has been given at a regular meeting of the council, and then with a vote of approval of 2/3 vote of council members present and eligible to vote. And the waiving of the notice is prohibited. That's what we have in the procedural bylaw.
Right, so we couldn't do it tonight. We're not allowed to waive it and just push it through this evening, a procedural change. But Councillor Tarnowski is asking, he's giving notice that at the next meeting, what is proposed, so that would be the report that would say on next agenda that it's published in public 5 days ahead of time that states that this change is being proposed for the procedural bylaw. Councillor Tarnowski?
And just to confirm that when it does come up in 2 weeks at our next meeting, that it could be deferred if we don't have enough information, and if we feel we need more information, that it's really in our realm to decide if we want to prolong this as well, or if we have enough information to make that decision.
Councillor Deakin?
Just a subsequent procedural question, if I may. The opening or the notice would only pertain to that piece and not other aspects of the procedural bylaw? When we've opened it in the past, we've...
Right, so if, for example, if there was something else you wanted
Yeah.
changed, you could give notice this evening and it would be included in the changes in 2 weeks. However, in 2 weeks' time, it's open for that specific item that we've given notice for. However, in 2 weeks' time, if you say, oh, I want to make another change, then that would be your notice, and it would be coming back at the following meeting to approve that. So whatever changes you're proposing, you propose at one meeting, and then you make a decision on it the next, or unless you defer it. But so if you're looking to make other changes to the procedural bylaw, then you would have to give notice, and then it would be dealt with at the following meeting.
Thank you for the clarification.
Councillor Lalonde?
Yeah, so I guess there's the option or the idea that this particular bylaw could be repealed. I guess there would be an opportunity also to consider maybe suspending it for a period of a year? Or does it matter one way or the other, like the idea of suspending as opposed to repealing? I know that in one municipality in particular, they elected to suspend it. And they gave them, what they did is they gave themselves a year to, to see if the decision that they made as a council worked out well for them. I think they were hoping as well that there would be some other features in terms of transparency and communication that would be developed further by admin on behalf of council, and they were hoping to see the benefit or the good result of that at year's end, and whether they then repealed it at that point at year's end. Just something I thought I would mention that I was reading up on.
Yeah, no, that's a viable alternative. It could be a change that we suspend the rules until a certain date, and then it would force council to reevaluate that decision at that point in time. So that's a potential, but right now is the direction should be given, the notice should be given that this will be coming back at the next council meeting, and we're giving notice that we're either suspending or eliminating question period. Councillor Tarnowski?
And so just to finalize on that, and also giving direction to staff to give us a little bit more insight on the stats around that pertaining to whether it's operational, as Councillor Rowan said, or more directed at council.
Yeah. I think we also have the opportunity, all our minutes are listed on the website, right? So we can go look at all the minutes and it'll show the questions that were asked. And as individuals, we can look at them and say, yeah, that was really operational, that was operational. That could have been done ahead of time without an issue or whatever the case is. Councillor Deakin?
Just to clarify my request on the side of the stats, and it can be a narrative, that's quite okay, anecdotal. Are we meeting the public's need for the information that they're seeking within a time frame that's reasonable before a meeting or slightly after a meeting? So it's not about necessarily the nature of the questions coming in on the day. I want to know as a councillor, somebody who represents residents, that their questions are being answered when they have a question and within a reasonable time frame related to the agenda itself by email. If we were to remove it, that avenue does work, that it is part of our communication to residents to be pursuing that avenue. Yeah. And in addition to that piece being brought back, as Councillor Tarnowski mentioned, I just would like, as part of that as well, some clarity around the public engagement piece as it relates to that strategic plan objective that I'm referencing and the potential for a public engagement policy.
Okay, thank you. Monsieur Godin, questions, comments?
Oui, merci, Monsieur Maire. So I think that clarified a lot of the question that I was going to pose. Because at first I thought maybe I had misunderstood, and the stats that we're looking for were more about the actual questions in the meetings. But I think we're looking in two parts. The questions in the meeting could they have been answered by email by staff in advance, and also the questions that staff are receiving after the publication of the agenda, and how we're able to respond to those as well. Mm-hmm. Okay, and yes, we can speak on the public engagement policy.
Yeah.
For sure.
I just have to point out though, we have to be careful in regards to. I'm all about communication, engagement. But I mean, if somebody's sending 50 emails and asking questions and jumping, that it just becomes overwhelming. Like, we do have limited staff resources, right? Monsieur Godin?
Merci, Monsieur Maire. That's correct, and there are some cases like that, but I mean, there are also a lot of very good and pertinent questions coming in, so we can, when we prepare statistics or when we analyze that, we can focus on those and not the outliers. Okay, perfect.
So is everybody okay to have this discussion in the next meeting? We're giving notice, and that'll be brought back in a report from staff. Okay, we're good? Okay, that was item 18B. Item 19, consultation publique, audience, il n'y a pas. Item 20, announcements. Councilors have any announcements? Hearing, seeing none. Anything to announce from the administration? No, we're good? All right. Item 21, discussion, strategic discussion. We had nothing on the agenda tonight. Item 22, closed session. Councilor Lorrain?
I just want to make sure again procedurally for item 18B, I think it does state that for us to move forward with the fact that it was presented tonight, we need a 2/3 vote of the members of council.
Okay. So let's get a mover and a seconder to bring.
If I'm reading this correctly, Madame Camille Laflamme.
Madame Camille Laflamme?
I think the vote is more for the amendment itself when it's brought.
In 2 weeks' time, that it will require 2/3 vote to change the procedural bylaw.
So I'll read it. I'll read the section because this is how I interpret it.
Yep.
So section 23.2, amendment or repeal. No amendment or repeal of this bylaw or any part thereof shall be considered at any meeting of the council unless notice of the proposed amendment or repeal has been given at a regular meeting of council with a vote of approval of 2/3 vote of members that are present.
Okay.
So I read that as
The notice needs a
as the
2/3.
notice needs a 2/3 vote to move forward,
Right.
unless I'm wrong.
No. Councillor Ternosky?
I think it could be interpreted both ways, but I think to be safe, we can have a vote
Yeah.
now to open the bylaw.
So mover and a seconder, moved by Councillor Ternosky, seconded by Councillor Lalonde. All those in favor of giving the direction? All those opposed? Carried. Thank you very much, Councillor Larrain. So item 22, closed session, motion to move into closed meeting at the hour of 7:35 PM to address matters pertaining to, 1, sale of land in the 417 Industrial Park, amendment to the contract to authorize an extension, report CS 2024-02, under section 2C, a proposer pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. 2, sale of land in the 417 Industrial Park, report CS 2024-03 under section 2C, proposer pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. Item 3, potential lease regarding a property in Embrun, verbal report, section 2K. A position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. And item 4, closed session minutes of the regular council meeting dated January 29th, 2024. Need a mover and a seconder to go in closed session. Moved by Councillor Ternosky, seconded by Councillor Deakin. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. We're going into closed session.